we'd never run a dairy unit. Our third season in dairy, and we've taken it from walking in with bare feet to wearing red bands, if you could make a comparison that way. Ko Pākehī tihi tōku kuia, ko Taurua Timutimu tōku koraua, ko Te Awanui Timutimu tōku pāpā, ko Hinehou Timutimu ahau. I whānau mai au i Waitara, i tipu ai au i Waitara, i pakeke mai au i whakatāne. Ki te taha o tōku māmā, ko te teira mānuka o ku tūpuna, ko mira teira tōku koraua, ko nāhina teira tōku kuia, ko whare māwhai mina Timutimu tōku māmā. Right now I work for Te Tawakaiti Lands Trust. I became involved with the Lands Trust through my father-in-law, Harenuku Rātana, who was an original owner and trustee of the trust. So in 2016 we fast-forwarded the purchase of 2 blocks, which were Ruatoki C13 and C14. And those 2 blocks were purchased under general land by the trust, and the land surrounding those 2 blocks. The significance about the purchase of the blocks was that was the dairying part of the trust. Leading up to the AGM in 2015, we'd brought in expertise to do an assessment of the blocks before we took ownership back from Noema Wātene. And we brought in a land assessor who did up a full report of the whole farm, what needed to be done, how we were going to be able to turn that dairy unit into a more productive dairy unit for the trust, and what changes we needed to put in place while the lease was still under the Wātene family. That reporting, along with a little report back from our legal advisor, was tabled at our 2015 AGM. And so what was agreed at that AGM by the owners was that they agreed to us looking at purchasing those blocks off the Wātenes. So we'd done that in 2015. We changed our trustees. We had an election of trustees, brought on 2 new trustees. They were He Manawaka and Moses Tihi. In terms of what we looked at in 2016, purchasing the 2 blocks, and we purchased the 2 blocks, but we retained the herd-owning share milker on the ground till the end of their contract, which was 2019. So it gave us possibly a 2-year full window to get ourselves farm ready to take over at the end of the 2019 season. So what that looked like was developing key relationships and initiatives to get us there. An initiative to grow a herd with Te Manawa o Tūhoi, and that was under the guidance of Rob Tiopera when he was the CEO there. Key relationships with Fonterra, with Dairy NZ, Ngā Whenua Rāhui, o Whakatoro Lands Trust, Tātai Whitu Lands Trust, TPK. We were party to a pilot scheme. It was funded by TPK and Dairy NZ, and that was rural governance training.
Just someone come up, receive their coach from our chairman, Mautihi.
Moses Moana Tiramaroa Tihi, tēnei. One of the kaitiakis of Te Tawakaiti. A lot of training through our wānanga. It was to better ourselves. We had a nephew come in. He was a farm advisor. He worked for Dairy NZ. He came in on the scene and he said, you need to go on the Dairy NZ Wānanga.
And he just said, you need to do this, and outlined briefly what we needed to do. But was really, emphasising the fact that we knew nothing and we were going into managing a multi-million-dollar business and we really need to get our act together. Yeah. So then he linked us into one of their senior consultants who met with us, and she networked us into this Foma Wānanga. In the mix, this person, William, came. He needed to form a cluster of farms, and the idea was that he would work with Māori Lands Trust from the grassroots up. He would teach us the mahi of dairying, but also the business of dairying and governance. So for the trust, they needed to know how to, and understand how to run the business of dairy. But for that to happen, they needed to be able to work around the table, the governance table, and that was key. So if we didn't have the relationship built around the governance table, we weren't going to be able to succeed in our business units. We knew that when we got to 2019, stepping into the role of managing the dairy unit ourselves, we were able to do that. We bought the dairy unit in 2016. We weren't actually managing the farm then because the herd manager did that. They owned the herd, and we got 50% of the paycheck. We didn't have any involvement, but it was a time that we were able to educate ourselves how to be that person. So really, we've only been managing the dairy unit since 2019, but we'd never run a dairy unit, and we're now into 2022. Our third season in dairy, and we've taken it from walking in with bare feet to wearing red bands, if you could make a comparison that way. Now we have a herd of our own, and now we've bought a herd and we lease it. So what we are looking at doing now is reducing our stocking rate, which we've done in the last month, heading into this season. So the New Zealand season started on the 1st of June. We've also got a herd that we lease, so it's separate to this herd. We purchased it and we're leasing it to another lands trust. So what we get back from that herd are the new calves, or we can release those back to the trust, which I think we possibly will do. For us to move forward, we wanted to learn more about the business of maize. And for us to learn the business of maize, we realised early in the piece that if we were going to be able to make a difference in our maize unit, that meant that we would need to change our maize contractor, and a maize contractor that was Māori. And we did. And that was Regan Studer, and Regan took us, he showed us, and he taught us everything around maize, and he's linked us into the key stakeholders in the maize industry. So the success story around that is that we didn't change our maize unit, but what we did do was that we changed the face of the trust, and that face was Māori business for Māori. In our dairy unit, we purchased the 2 blocks from Noema, so we brought back that ownership of the land back into Te Tawakaiti, which meant that we wouldn't be leasing the land anymore, we were working our own land. Another success would be for looking forward to the 2019 season and 2017, we had a joint initiative with Te Manawa Tūhoi to grow a herd for us that when we got it in 2019, it was coming to us in calf. So we were getting a really excellent herd, and it was going to bring in calves for us, which would mean it would be more money next season. So we were going to increase the herd as well. The amount of governance training that we involved ourselves in as a team, that was a huge success to the development of the trust and the business units. Our relationships with other lands trusts that we didn't have, It is good to have that connection and that relationship working alongside each other. We do have one or two people in the management part of the trust, but decisions are made by the consensus of the board. One of the other successes of the trust is we have beef that are grown on farm by the contract milker, and those beef are targeted for our 3 marae, and we raise them, we process them, and then we deliver them to our marae, and they can distribute them as they please. They can cook them or they can use them for fundraising ventures, however they see fit. Our cash benefits that we first rolled out were our kaumātua grants, and those are going really well. Then our educational grants, internships and scholarships. 2024 is where we need to have upgraded our current effluent system, because that's when our compliance expires, effluent compliance. This time in 12 months, we should have already had our planning in place and our drafts applications for effluent already sitting as a final draft, ready to submit to the council, to EBOP. If it means that we're going to look at a new site, that would mean that we would be looking at the whole dairy unit infrastructure changing. Then there's also diversification outside of cropping, looking at the new ways of cropping that are all geared around developing and looking after the environment. Succession's another one. So in our strategic planning, we've also tagged in wānanga around with our taiohi, ranatahi, and with te reo, learning things from the grassroots up, having interactive wānanga at the marae and on farm, and being more involved with the kura, and looking at sustainable ways of growing kai. We do have an issue around housing and how we can best provide housing for our owners and also maintain our business units. So a way forward for us is developing the papakainga concept, but not just a housing area. It's an area that can be further developed for to offer a hauora centre or something of to cater for our whānau that are living in that housing area. With the landowners, one of the challenges that we were aware of right from the beginning was that they felt that we weren't, that the trust wasn't giving them enough information. They didn't know a lot, because that was something that was the feedback that was coming back. We didn't know that this was happening, or we don't know about that, or what's happening here. So one of the ways that we saw forward was give them more information, be more inclusive, give back more.
I te take tonu o te purukamu nei o nā rākau nei te puna, karia te ripaki, te roa nā pāpā, whakatūtūhia, haere hia nā taramu, teitei tonu, he rahi tonu. Koina te mea hana mai o te wai, kua pupu mai te wai, hai orana mō nā mea karekau he wai o tēnei.
Takiwā.
He repo katoa atua atura.
Okay.
Ana koinei katoa atu nā māka o tēnā whenua. O te whānau te āre. Tika tā.
So kua Amio ki tōna tīmatanga has revealed a few things, throughout our interviews. Let's have a look at, yourself, your role in this project, Hinehou, and what is your role and where the project came from in terms of the thinking. Yeah.
So in my role with the trust, two of us got together and talked about what we were going to be able to do to create a legacy for the trust that was going to be meaningful for our owners. And this project aims to bring about engaging with the wider beneficiaries and wanting to know about them. We want to hear their stories because it's all about us. the Trust has very little archival information. So beginning this journey, be it that it is late, we're beginning it anyway. And so that's the purpose, is to form the archival document for the Trust for the beneficiaries and landowners. It's also about creating a space of where our learning is never ends, coming from a te ao Māori perspective, where teaching and learning goes round and round. So that was the concept of the name, Ko Amio ki tōna timatana, full circle. And that became one of our strategic directives from a planning meeting that we had in 2020. As the Trust has always been there, in the periphery, and if we could look at it that way, and the people, the kuia karaua, aunties, uncles, the whole community are kind of what circle around them, and which brings us back to Ko Amio ki tōna timatana, where it comes from, just an ongoing circle of learning and living and passing on.
Kua mutu a tāua kōrero, mena kua mutu a au kōrero. Kua pai, kua pai. Ngā mi. Kua pai, ana kua mārama rā. Ai, tino mārama. Nā mi. Ka ki te rai a koe.